stream to YouTube is building. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat, just in case you want to share it with any family and friends who you think would really enjoy it. All right, and we're live streaming on YouTube. Awesome, awesome. All right, and we're right at 6 o'clock, so if you all want to copy that YouTube link and send it out to folks, feel free. And everybody who's watching, just an FYI, you're in attendee mode, so you don't have audio and video if you're in the Zoom room with us. If at the end you want to ask Dr. Cooper a question with your, your voice and your face, you can request to become a panelist. But in the meantime, we're going to keep all our questions and comments and epiphanies and whatever else you want to share in the chat on Zoom, as well as in the YouTube comments. So we always like to kick things off to give people a few seconds to get in the room with some questions. So our first question is, have you ever done citizen science before? And there are no wrong answers. If you haven't done it, let us know. You're in the right place to learn how to do it. If you have done it, cool. Answer yes. Maybe put in the chat the projects you've done. If you're not sure, that's okay too. All are welcome here. The goal of these events is to give you the tools you need, the knowledge you need to participate in real scientific research. So our votes are coming in. I'm seeing quite a few yeses. It seems like a few people have done citizen science before, a few no's, and there's one person who's unsure. Totally okay. All right, we're going to end the poll there. And if you're watching on YouTube, just put your answers in the YouTube comments to these poll questions. So it looks like the majority of you have done citizen science, but quite a few of you haven't. That's great. I think even if you're a citizen science expert, you can learn something new from these events each week. And if you've never heard of citizen science before, you definitely will learn something new, and you are very welcome at this event. So we'll stop sharing those results. All right, let's see. What's our next question? Now we want to know, do you live in North Carolina? Yes, no, unsure. These events are open to anybody anywhere in the world. I think we have someone from Nepal tuning in, which is very exciting to me. But these events are very North Carolina focused. We designed them with that community in mind, even though they're open to all. And I think people from all sorts of different countries have come to these events and learned something new. Many of these projects you can do anywhere in the world. We feature a different project each week at Make It Count Monday with NC State's Citizen Science Campus and SciStarter. So it looks like we're about 70% of people live in North Carolina. About 30% don't in the room with us today. I'm going to end the poll there and share my results. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, you can put in the YouTube comments what your answers to these questions are. So we'll stop sharing those results. Now we want to know, are you part of the NC State community? This could mean whatever you want it to mean. It could mean that you're just a big fan of the Wolfpack. It could mean that you're literally a student at NC State right now, or a faculty member, a staff member, or just someone who is on campus a lot, or goes to classes, or whatever it is, tunes in online to classes. I guess you're all on Zoom these days. Or it can mean that you're an alum, or maybe it just means that you are a big fan, you really like NC State. Whatever this answer means to you, answer yes, no, unsure. Looks like the majority of you are indeed part of the NC State community. So we'll share those results. Very cool. And then for those of you who are part of the NC State community, we want to know, are you part of the NC State Citizen Science Club? That's a club of students and other folks in the community who I know that they've been doing a lot of really great online stuff these days, and it's all about celebrating citizen science and doing citizen science. Looks like the majority of folks here are not part of the club. Okay, totally fine. If you're not part of the club and you want to join, I'm going to show you where you can get information about doing that. So we'll end the poll there and we'll share those results. Okay, very cool. So I'm going to pull up your one stop for citizen science. And a big thank you to my co-host, Deja, Dr. Cooper, who joins us each week, usually as an attendee, or if she wants to really learn about one of our special guests, as well as the whole NC State Citizen Science Campus and the North Carolina State community for making this show possible. So where are you right now? You're at Make It Count Monday. It's a weekly show where we keep it fun, we keep it casual, we do citizen science demos, we dive in with a special guest each week and citizen science world, and we featured all sorts of different topics in the realm of public engagement and research. Everything from video games you can play to do real science to projects you can do outside, and so much more. Citizen science is as diverse as science itself. And for those of you who haven't heard of citizen science before, basically what it means is it's any way you can volunteer to move science forward. So this can be through collecting data, analyzing data. It's just real science you can do without any special training. And SciStarter is a hub for citizen science. We connect you to the real projects you can do. People add their projects and events to SciStarter and their tools when they're seeking citizen scientist volunteers. And NC State is a hub for citizen science, a community for citizen science. And that's why they have this page on SciStarter, scistarter.org/NCSU-home. On the left sidebar, you'll see information about the Citizen Science Club, as promised, NC State libraries, as well as to the main Citizen Science Campus website. And we also have our season lineup here. Next week, Catherine Youngblood of the Marine Debris Tracker Project is joining. You can learn all about how citizen science can be a tool for you to track plastic pollution. And then after that, we have our holiday special with Deja and I. Deja's going to talk about a project she led, the Triangle Bird Count, as well as her work as a wildlife expert in citizen science guru, and then I'll talk a little bit about the work I do on the platform side at SciStarter. So you don't want to miss either of these shows. And then today, of course, we have our special guest, Dr. Karen Cooper, who's going to talk about the Crowd the Tap project. Also on this page, you'll find a self-guided citizen science tutorial. It's about 30 minutes to click through it. There are quizzes, there are videos, you get a certificate. It's a lot of fun. We heartily recommend it. As well as some featured projects, including today's project, Front and Center, Crowd the Tap. You can click on one of these cards, one of these icons, and it'll take you to where you can get more instructions, watch videos, and of course, most importantly, participate in the project. But you're in the right place to learn how to do that tonight. And you can actually ask Dr. Cooper any questions in the chat. And then at the bottom, we have past Make It Count Mondays, as well as some additional citizen science activities that the NC State community put together. I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat as well in case anyone wants to get started exploring it. I know we have a lot of students attending today, so I wanted to give those folks an extra special welcome, especially our new members of the Wolfpack, including first years, transfer students. We're just so delighted you're here and that you want to turn your curiosity into impact with citizen science. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to my co-host Deja, who's going to talk a little bit about today's topic, contextualize it with current events, and then introduce our special guest, Dr. Karen Cooper.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Hi, everybody out there in the chat and tuning in on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in this week and for joining us here on Make It Count Monday. So this week we are talking about water. Yes, again, we're talking about those elements of life. And so to start off our little 5-minute segment about our worldly connections, I want to ask you out there in the audience a question. I want to know, when at home, where do you get your water? Do you get your water from the tap? Do you drink water out of water bottles, a water cooler? Maybe you have water filters? Drop it in the chat and let me know, where do you get your drinking water? I know for me personally, it depends on where I am. Like here today, unfortunately, I'm drinking out of a plastic water bottle, but that is how my family at home pretty much gets their water. They don't drink water from the tap. Usually when I'm in North Carolina, I use a water filter. And so like one of those Brita water filters, and that's where I get my water from. So let me know in the chat, Caroline, I don't know if you want to hop in and tell us where you get your water from.
Definitely from the tap. I put in the chat, one could say I'm crowding it. But it looks like we have a lot of tap water drinkers. Great. Anybody use the Brita filter? I feel like this might be a question for Dr. Cooper. Are Brita filters just a placebo? Someone said, I heard it is better because there are more minerals in it. Interesting. What were you going to say?
Yeah, they do things to purify water for different things.
To what extent, though, are they effective? I know I'm already taking us off topic. Do we know that? Or could we test that with the Crowd the Tap strips? Or
No, not with the crowd. The tap strips. And basically, if a filter says that it is NSF certified for lead, then it does eliminate lead. And now I don't know if every Brita filter does that, but I think most of them do. But it needs to have that NSF certification. And then the claims, like, can't make false claims under that. So it is, so yeah, I think a lot of the Brita filters have that NSF designation, and they can remove, when we're talking about lead, they can remove lead.
Well, that is really good to know. I think I might have to hurry home and switch out the type of water filter that I use so that I can make sure that mine filters out lead. I see we have some comments in the chat. A lot of people say that they use either a water filter or they get their water from the tap. I see one person says they get their water from groundwater. They use a hand pump. And someone also says that they heard that maybe a water filter or tap water is better because there's more minerals in it than compared to water bottles. And then someone else says water bottles or a refrigerator. So filtered water. And I think this is going to be really relevant to the topic that we're talking about this week, because water quality differs depending on where we are in the world, especially the water from our tap. And so I know for me, just a quick little personal story, I've lived in a lot of different states across the US, and I started to depending on where I lived is depending on where I got my water from. So when I lived here in Chicago with my parents, we pretty much used water bottles. When I lived in Alabama in undergrad, that's when I started using, I really wanted to use one of the metal water bottles because I knew I didn't want to have such a huge impact on, the world by having so much plastic. And I lived in a dorm at the time, so I really didn't have anywhere to get my water from, except for the water fountains that were in the building. But we had so many issues with the water fountains, where we would have the water would come out, it would be white, and some people said it had a strange smell and it tasted weird, and if you let it sit for a while, it would turn to clear. But I was really skeptical about what they were telling me about the water quality in our dorm rooms. And then we had tons of old buildings across campus, and just looking at the quality of the buildings made me really question the quality of the pipes. And so it really made it hard for me to be this sustainability champion when I had to go out and use these plastic water bottles. And so once I moved to Mississippi and North Carolina, that is when I started really using those reusable water bottles. Now, this is all relevant because I want you all to think about how much do you actually know about the water that is in your homes. I think we all assume that the water in our homes is safe to drink because our homes create this idea of a safe space and a safe place. But did you know that the water in your home could be a source of contamination or pollution that may be harming your body? Having access to clean drinking water is a luxury that we don't typically think about. In 2019, the World Health Organization stated that 1 in 3 people globally do not have access to safe, clean drinking water. About 2.2 billion people around the world do not have safely managed drinking water services. So I don't know about you all out there in the audience, but I know for me, when I think about water quality and safe drinking water, the first thing that pops into my mind is Flint, Michigan, and all of the issues that they are still having with getting people access to clean drinking water. And so if you're unfamiliar with what's happened in Flint, today I'll give you a little story. So long story short, the water crisis in Flint, Michigan began in 2014 when the city switched its drinking water supply from Detroit's system to the Flint River in order to cut on costs. And the inadequate treatment and testing of this water resulted in a series of major water quality and health issues for the Flint residents, issues that were ignored, overlooked, and discounted by government officials, even as complaints kept building that the foul-smelling, discolored, and off-tasting water piped into Flint homes for 18 months was causing skin rashes, hair loss, and itchy skin. Now that's the overarching view of what happened. But in order for us to really understand the depth of the situation in Flint, we have to go back in time. And so for more than a century, the Flint River, which flows through the heart of the town, has served as an unofficial waste disposal site for treated and untreated refuse from many local industries that sprouted along its shores. So industries ranging from carriage and car factories to meat packing plants, lumber, and paper mills. The waterway also received raw sewage from the city's waste treatment plants, agricultural and urban runoff, and toxins from leaching landfills. And of course, I mean, if you think about all these things that are being put in the water, it wouldn't be surprised if it was rumored that the Flint River caught fire twice. Crazy to think about, but rumor has it. And so as these industries along the river's shores evolved, so did too the city's economy. And so in the mid-20th century, Flint, which is the birthplace of General Motors, was the flourishing home to nearly 200,000 people, many of those who were employed by the booming car industry. But in the 1980s, that prosperity was put on pause as rising oil prices and auto imports resulted in the auto plants and being laid off and all the workers being laid off, and many of them ended up relocating, which resulted in the city's population declining to just 100,000 people, and a majority of whom were African American. About 45% of its residents live below the poverty line. So nearly 1 in 6 of the city's homes have been abandoned. Now, this is the picture of the social landscape in 2011, which is when Flint fell under state control. The governor of Michigan at the time appointed an emergency manager to oversee and cut the city costs. And so in 2013, that was, everything I just said was what led to that tragic decision in 2013 to end the practice of piping treated water from residents in Detroit to temporarily pumping water from the Flint River until a new water pipeline from Lake Huron was built. And so although the river was highly corrosive, Flint officials failed to treat it, and that lead leached out from aging pipes into thousands of homes. And so soon after the city began supplying residents with that Flint water in April of 2014, residents started complaining that the water from their taps looked, smelled, and tasted foul. But despite protests by residents lugging jugs of discolored water, officials maintained that the water was safe. A study conducted the following year by researchers at Virginia Tech revealed the problem, and that was that water samples collected from 252 homes throughout a resident organized effort indicated that citywide lead levels had spiked, with nearly 17% of samples registering above the federal action level of 15 parts per billion, aka the level at which corrective action must be taken. More than 40% measured above 5 parts per billion of lead, which researchers consider an indication of a very serious problem. But the worst is not over. Thousands of Flint residents are still getting their water from lead pipes. The EPA and other health authorities agree that there is no safe level of lead in water. So the continuing use of lead pipes by thousands of Flint residents remains a concern, especially because of their cumulative lead exposure over multiple years. Now, leaded pipes are not only a concern in Flint, Michigan. Many people all over the US could potentially have lead pipes and be unaware of the dangers lurking beneath their floorboards. To protect our water supplies, it is crucial that we upgrade our nationwide water infrastructure and prioritize the replacement of an estimated 6.1 million leaded service pipes. And so that's just a really quick, not really quick overview of, the issue, and it really boils down to an environmental justice issue, especially when those pipes, a lot of those older homes with leaded pipes end up being in minority communities, primarily African American communities. And so in preparation for today, one thing that I tried to do a quick Google search and figure out what state or city in the US has the best drinking water. And so My search results yielded a variety of inconclusive answers, and it varied from year to year, and of course by the classification of what best is. And so some cities that made the list were New York City, Fort Collins, Colorado, El Dorado, Colorado, and Denver, Colorado, as well as Chicago. Now, I will say the use of the word best is not a good indicator, and it's not a good descriptor, because how do you determine what best is? And is best in terms of taste? Is it in terms of safety? And so I thought it was funny when I typed this in to find out who had the best water in the US. Most places immediately pulled up who had the best tasting water. However, taste is not the best or a very scientific way to determine clean or safe drinking water. There are many contaminants that cannot be detected by taste that can be present in your tap water. Microbial and organic contaminants cannot always be detected by the human senses. You might go years before realizing a problem actually exists, which is a major problem. Many people may never become suspicious until individuals in their community start getting sick, similar to what happened in Flint, Michigan. Now, water near agricultural areas may contain harmful organic material from pesticide or fertilization application. Chemicals from pesticides and fertilizers in water may increase cancer risk and reproductive problems, can impair eye, liver, kidney, and other bodily functions, and similar problems can result from exposure to water near industrial plants. Now, of course, this all depends on, one, where you get your drinking water from. Are you getting your drinking water from wells? So are you getting it from the ground? Are you getting your drinking water from municipal places? Are you getting, is it surface water? And so that all plays a role. What type of pipes you have in your home, all of these things play a role. And so how do we as a collective determine if we have safe, clean drinking water in our homes? Now that is what we are going to find out this week. So let's find out how we can all make our tap water observations count. This week, our special guest is Dr. Karen Cooper. Dr. Karen Cooper is a professor and researcher at NCSU, North Carolina State University. She studies bird ecology and conservation through the use of citizen science. She believes that through citizen science, people anywhere at any time can lend a hand in carrying out genuine scientific research. She is an advocate for the practices of citizen science, open science, and science communication, pursuing scholarly inquiry into these areas and bringing them all together to achieve public science. Now, please, audience, help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Cooper by saying hello in the chat box.
Hey, thanks, Deja. And hi, everybody. It's really nice to know you're here. And and to talk about Crowd the Tap, which is focused on safe drinking water. And actually, so I'll just give a little info. Like there's two federal laws related to water. And one is that they were both in the 70s, started, I guess, roughly. But one is the Clean Water, the Clean Water Act, which really protects rivers, streams, creeks, like natural water bodies. So often we'll talk about clean water, and that's referring to those natural water bodies. And then there's the Safe Drinking Water Act, which refers to the water that comes through our tap for drinking and human consumption. And there's different regulations and parameters about what is considered safe drinking water. And it's very different from what's considered in the legal context clean, right? Because clean water, like in creeks and whatnot, that's good if it has like little critters in it, dragonfly larvae, like all those kinds of things actually mean it's really clean, great water. But the water that comes through our tap is actually often treated with certain things. It might have fluoride, it might have little bits of chlorine, it might have different things that actually make our water safe for drinking. And anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about. And Crowd the Tap in particular, as Deja mentioned, focuses on lead. Now there's a lot of other, I guess you could say, threats to drinking water and to safe drinking water. And I think Helen in the chat mentioned a talk, another meeting, another gathering that'll happen tomorrow, it looks like, related to PFAS. And anyway, there's a lot to learn about in this whole area about water. I guess that's all I could say. But when it comes to lead in water, I think what's really important to recognize is that the source of contamination is from our infrastructure. It's from the pipes themselves. We could do everything to protect our drinking water bodies, to have clean water in our lakes and rivers. But if our pipe infrastructure that then brings water to our homes leaches lead, then we'll have problems with lead contamination. And I think that with water, like, it's in this funny space with citizen science, because it's something that everybody wants: clean water, healthy water, safe drinking water, obviously. But I think so few people know or understand the systems by which we get our drinking water and how it's managed and what our responsibilities are in that system. We kind of just trust that the utility companies that are providing the water are 100% responsible for providing safe water. And that's actually not the case. There's part of it that is the responsibility of the homeowners and the pipes that are on private property. And that's what Crowd the Tap focuses on. I could go on and on, but I figure I'll let you ask me questions.
Yeah, and everyone, we have a demo coming for you in just a little bit. But
yeah, you're ready.
No, but first I wanted to ask, because I know we have some new members of the Wolfpack with us, and welcome so much. There are people tuning in on YouTube as well, so we haven't forgotten you. You can ask questions in the chat on YouTube as well. But beyond Crowd the Tap, what's your number one piece of advice to a new member of the Wolfpack who wants to get started in citizen science?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Well, I would say they could totally follow the landing page that you showed, the SciStarter page, and really everything they need is there. So I would say joining the club. If they're a student, to join the Citizen Science Club, they will be warmly welcomed and really have great peer community for learning and engaging with citizen science. And then, and really just, I guess, that tutorial that's on the site, and then just diving in and giving it a try. There's so many types of projects. And so I think for starting out, it's great to find one that dovetails the most with your personal interests, right? I mean, so we're starting with Crowd the Tap, and that, I think everyone is in some level interested in water, but you might have more interests in birds or butterflies or astronomy. There's projects like literally in every field.
That's a great idea. So could you give us some of the history of Crowd the Tap, like why you were inspired to start it and why it's called Crowd the Tap in the first place?
Yeah. Well, the project started from a grant from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. That grant is actually the PI on that. The head principal investigator is Mark Edwards at Virginia Tech, who Deja alluded to earlier, who did some pivotal work in Flint. And my role in that EPA grant was to create a citizen science project and that infrastructure for people to report on the types of pipes in private residences, because there's literally like no information on this. So for example, most of the pipe infrastructure in our country was laid decades ago, before we had what we take for granted now, which is like the internet and computers, right? So there's not good digital records. So there really wasn't good record keeping at all as to what kind of pipes are buried now underground. So it's really difficult to do these inventories and even know where there might be problems, where we need to prioritize replacing leaded infrastructure. So for example, just within North Carolina, we were looking at, we have 100 counties. We were looking at all the different water utilities that serve people in our 100 counties. And when it comes to serving people in their homes, like as opposed to schools or hospitals, there's about 2,000 water systems that serve the residents of North Carolina. And when we looked at just what was on what they were reporting in terms of lead, we found that there were systems in 97 of the counties that had some lead. And that those systems serve about 80 million North Carolinians. Now, it's not that the whole systems are lead. They also have a lot of other types of pipes. They might have steel, they have plastic, different types of plastic, they have copper, but they still have some residual lead components. And pinpointing where those are and prioritizing from there is a really important aspect of Crowd the Tap. And the other thing, which Deja alluded to a little bit too, is that another goal of Crowd the Tap is to assess whether there are environmental injustices with in terms of the risk of lead in tap water. So in other words, if there's certain peoples who are disproportionately burdened with the risk of leaded infrastructure, namely if it's poor people or people of color that might be disproportionately burdened with these risks. And that's one of the other things we're assessing with the project.
Now, I'm curious, Dr. Cooper, do you have a particular community that you're interested in engaging with this project? So really, who can participate in Crowd the Tap?
So the project itself is open nationwide for anyone in the United States to take part in. And that's for the core part of Crowd the Tap of answering questions about the home, like when it was built and those kind of things, demographics in the homes, about the pipes in the homes, the service line, the home plumbing, and then also questions about how we do perceive the water quality, about the taste and the smell and how it looks. Because even though lead itself is invisible and we can't taste it, we can't detect it, really to know if lead is there, we need to send samples to the lab. There's still a lot that we can learn from some of the things that we can detect that can help statistically tell us like what the odds are that there might be some other problems with the water. So basically the short answer is we invite all people to participate. We're focusing efforts in particular on North Carolina, I guess a little bit through our Citizen Science Campus. And we do have a special student ambassador program. We have ambassadors of Crowd the Tap, which are people that bring the Crowd the Tap program to their neighbors. And if they get a couple of dozen community members to take part, then we can provide water testing, like kits for people to collect water from their taps to send off to the lab, and we can cover those costs. So we have ambassadors who are students, some who get credit for that or work study jobs. And we have ambassadors who are librarians that are working with us on this. And we have ambassadors who are teachers, like in high schools. And we have a high school curriculum that goes with the project.
Wonderful. So if you're out there in the audience, that means you can be an ambassador. That means you can help your community figure out what type of water you have in your communities, what type of water people have in their homes, and get that water tested for free. Take advantage, you guys, take advantage. And
I should say, and Deja's double timing because she's actually the ambassador coordinator for Crowd the Tap. So she can tell you all about it.
And before we move on to the demo, I wanted to ask for our international friends, what should they do? Because I know we have people tuning in tonight from Nepal, for example. I've had Canadians inquire if they can do the project. Are there other projects you'd recommend to people in like Asia, for example? Or can they learn from Crowd the Tap and start their own projects?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm not as familiar with sort of the water infrastructure globally. I mean, I think in many ways, you know, we're a developed country that has this infrastructure. It's just that we built it so long ago that we really do need to maintain and upgrade it. And we're really long overdue for that when it comes to our water infrastructure, in particular, our drinking water infrastructure. There's also a lot, you know, related to disposal sewage infrastructure too. And so, so I think when it comes to safe drinking water, it can really vary depending upon with a country like where they're at in developing that water infrastructure, in how much they might rely on groundwater versus surface water, and in how much they might, how centralized or distributed their water distribution systems are.
Deja, do you have any more questions before the demo? We have lots of questions, so we can come back after, but I want to give Deja a chance to ask any more of the burning questions.
No, I think we've covered all of our burning question. My next question was going to be, how can people participate, which leads us right into our demo. So if you want to take over, Dr. Cooper, please feel.
Okay. So, I mean, we could share images of the website, but there's several several parts to the project. So I mentioned the core part where people report about their pipes. And then there's a part that students and others who are associated with ambassadors are able to do. And that involves two different types of tests. And one of them, and students would have received this as a really simple test that comes with like with a simple set of instructions and a color chart and a little packet like this. And I was going to demo that for you just simply on how to use it. So what you'll need is a glass, and you'll want to make sure that your glass is tall enough so that this, let me take it out of its bag. So one side of this has a little place to hold, and the rest of it are these 14 different little color boxes, which react with different chemicals. And they'll change color when they react with different chemicals. Anyway, you want to make sure you have a glass that's deep enough to hold the whole strip, because it is pretty long. Then once you have that, you take a glass of water and you dip it in for 5 seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Okay, then you take it out, and I'm going to switch cameras here. Let's see if I can do this here. And you place it, and you let it sit. I'm going to look back at my instructions here. Let it sit for 60 seconds. And while it's sitting for 60 seconds, so those chemical reactions are taking place. And what I'm going to do is get things ready here. I just realized I need a pen. And I didn't set my clock, but I think it's almost 60 seconds. But anyway, I'm going to move this over a little bit. And see here, I'm going to bring this over. Oops. Trying to set this so you all can see it. I'm going to, oh, it's upside down, isn't it? Sorry. Hold on. Let me, write my name. Okay, let me go this way. Is that better?
Looking great.
For me, it looks reversed. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is set on this black box here is where I put the strip, and it lines up with these boxes on the color chart. Okay. Can you all see that a little bit? I guess you can't see the top of it, can you? Let me see if I can move this camera a little bit.
We're getting the idea, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see the whole thing now.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do a few things, which one is I'm going to compare the colors. And so like this first one aligns best with number 1, right? So I'm going to put that, well, you can't see this yet. Here. Let me go down. Which can you see? Can you see this one? Yeah. So here, this one also aligns with 1. And I'm going to write those numbers here. Let me do these actually. So this one, sometimes I need to move it over a little to see. I think this one actually aligns more with 3. Anyway, so you can go through these and choose the color or the column that you think matches best. You do that for all of them. You also use your phone camera to capture that. There's a better video of this online. But anyway, I'm going to center this so like it would capture the whole box, right? And I would take a picture. It's not quite centered yet. And I'm going to upload that on the website. And then I'm going to go over here. And for each of the numbers that I have, I'm going to circle that column. So like here where it's a number 2, I'm going to circle here, the second column. Where it's number 1, I'm going to circle here. So these other ones I have are 1s. Here, this one I have as a 3. And these are, so, and then these are the numbers that I'm going to enter onto the data entry sheet on the website. Okay. So
we have a few questions in the chat, wondering if they can place the strip into any type of container that is deep enough, or does the container have to be glass for the test strip?
Oh, good question. It can be any kind of container. Yeah, so it doesn't actually technically have to be made of glass. You can use a plastic cup or something like that. Is there any questions about this data entry? Because it's like these multiple steps with this column and with this column, and then to get your final numbers.
I say let's show the video, actually. I think Crowd the Tap's a really great example of using multimedia outreach to explain how the project works. So Deja, if you're up for it, I think you could go ahead and share your screen and get that video going. But while we wait on that, thank you so much for that demo, Dr. Cooper. We had a question in the Q&A section. Mishi wants to know, is Raleigh overrepresented in the sampling? AKA, is it not the target area? So while Deja gets that video going, I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, it's currently not too oversampled. We still want data from Raleigh. So, but there's definitely other parts of the state where we would love, both. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that get data from outside the triangle in general would be fantastic. Because yeah, we're probably more, not just Raleigh, but sort of in the triangle area in general, have had higher participation than some of the other areas in the state. And I think we could look at the video of Brian finding the pipes, because that's often one of the harder things I think to do on the project is to know, like, where do you go to find your pipes? And here's a question about elementary school students. So we are elementary students can participate with their parents or through their parents' engagement in the project, just because there's protections about youth not under 13 and the internet. Okay, do you want to start this? Oh, so which one is this? This is the video of the pipes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
All right, you all, so get ready to learn about how you can find out what types of pipes you have in your homes.
Yeah, buckle your seatbelts.
I'll show you how to check your pipes to see what they're made of, and then you're almost done, but not quite. If you want to be a citizen scientist, you have to share your data. So I'll walk you through the questionnaire, which will enable scientists to build a statistical model to predict the risk of lead in drinking water in homes. So let's do it. Now, you might already know what your pipes are made of. Maybe you have some paperwork from a home inspection, or maybe you've had a plumber replace your old pipes. But I'm going to have to check mine. And I'm going to start by finding my water heater. Mine is under my house in my basement. Come on.
That's my house across the street.
Your pipes are probably made of either plastic, copper, steel, or lead, or maybe a combination. The questionnaire will ask you about the service line and the pipes in your home. But if your water heater is in a closet or you can't find the service line, you might only be able to report on the pipes in your home, and that's okay. But I can trace this pipe all the way back to where my service line enters my basement. It comes up from the ground, then there's the cutoff valve to shut off water to the whole house, and it leads all the way back here to the water heater. Now, I have a penny and a magnet, and I'm going to use them to help figure out what my pipes are made of. But I think it's kind of obvious. The service line is a kind of plastic. It doesn't sound like metal. The magnet won't stick to it. That's plastic. But I do have some metal pipes here. And the magnet doesn't stick to it. It's copper colored, the color of a penny. Those pipes are copper. Now, we're really only interested in the pipes in your home, so we're not going to worry about these short segments that are just connectors. But I do want to use one to show you something. See this little section of silvery, metallic colored metal? That's metal, and the magnet does stick to it. Well, that's steel. If it were a silvery metallic color and the magnet didn't stick to it, it might be lead. But there's another test you can do, a scratch test, using a penny or something as hard. If you scratch steel, you're not going to have much of an effect. But lead is a very soft metal. And if you scratch it, you can actually scrape off part of it, leaving a silvery streak. But if you do this, please take these simple precautions. Don't inhale around it while you're doing it, because we don't want you to inhale any lead particles. And when you're done, use a wet paper towel to wipe it off, throw that away, wash your hands. And that's really all there is to it. So my service line is plastic, and the pipes in my home are plastic and copper. Let's go to crowdthetap.org and report our data. I'm already logged in, but you might.
All right, so the next part of the video is basically explaining how after you complete your scratch test, you can actually go online and fill in the most important part of the project, which is reporting your data. Karen, do you want me to keep showing how people can report their data, or?
I guess if we have time.
We've had quite a few questions come in.
All right.
So I think we'll pause that for now. We'll let you all discover that through the scistar.org/NCSU homepage. I promise you the instructions are really complete and we'll walk you through it. But it looks like we've had a few more questions. Someone said, thanks, that's usually the case. That's why I asked. Sometimes projects don't want to spend all their funds in cities. That's about the Raleigh question.
Oh, right.
Makes sense. Let's see. We've had lots of questions. Someone said, what are you doing? We were talking about Crowd the Tap. Someone asked, did you say glass has to be made of actual glass? No plastic, no metal? So maybe you could give a little bit more context on the materials portion of it.
Yeah, I think that was related to like for the test strip, which it could be any. It doesn't really have to be in a glass. It can be in anything, which is okay. Now, there's one person asking where to get the test strips. And right now, we've made them available to students and to people who are participating through the ambassador program, like if they know an ambassador or are an ambassador. And there's also some of those ambassadors are librarians, right? So we have some that are at public libraries. And so it kind of depends on where you are. When you participate in Crowd the Tap, you can email us at, I'll put the here, Crowd the Tap. And you can, and let us know where you are, and we can see if there's an ambassador near you who's distributing test strips.
Do you have any ambassadors near Indian Harbor Beach, Florida?
Not yet. They'd like one.
Sign me up.
First.
Yeah.
First.
Checking the YouTube. This is your last chance, everybody, to get your questions in. I guess while people get their last remaining questions in, Deja, maybe you could share your screen again and show us how to submit the data. I wanted to make sure we got all the questions from YouTube and Zoom, but I think now we can proceed to date of submission review. And while Deja pulls that up, maybe Dr. Cooper, could you tell us a little bit about where you think Crowd the Tap is going? Like, where do you think the project will be in like the next 2 years, for example?
Yeah, good question. Well, I hope that it has a really good inventory for North Carolina and hopefully other states that actually helps communities. So like in North Carolina, we have a Department of Environmental Quality every year submits a needs assessment, or maybe every other year, a needs assessment to the EPA. And the more they know about our infrastructure needs, then the more they can let the federal government know. And the more likely it is we can get some support for improving our infrastructure. And so I hope that the Crowd the Tap data will be useful for the regulatory agencies and for mobilizing for support for improving our drinking water infrastructure.
All right, crowdthetap.org. There it is. It directs you to that SciStarter form.
Here before, you might have to create a profile. It's very simple. You only need an email address, a username, and a password. Once you're in, click on Report Data, and you'll see there are several tabs, and it starts with a consent form. This is the longest page on the whole questionnaire, and I encourage you yourself, but basically it's some legal disclosures, and then it asks if you consent to participate. If you click no, you can't participate. And the good news is you don't have to fill out the rest of this form. But if you'd like to participate, click yes and enter your name. Then it asks if you'd like to make your name public. This is only so your name can be shown on the website as a participant. But no matter what you answer, the rest of your data remains confidential. Click start and it will take you to the next tab, your home. Also, once you hit start, the forum becomes available to you. So if you have any questions, you can post them here. Your home. In this tab, you'll enter your address and answer some questions about your house. What kind of house? Do you own or rent? How old is it? Do you pay a water utility or have a private well? And then there are some demographic questions about the people that live in your home. On some of the questions, one option is prefer not to answer. But if you're comfortable answering, these questions will enable the scientists to determine if there are any racial or economic disparities in water quality. Hit save and continue, and the next tab is your pipes. There are two short sections here, one about your home plumbing and one about your service line. Or if you said you have a private well, it will ask about your well casing. You don't have to answer the magnet test part, but you can. The important thing is, what are your pipes made of? So my home plumbing is copper and plastic. You can choose as many of these as apply. And my service line is plastic. Finally, it asks, have the pipes in your residence ever been replaced? I don't know. Save and continue. The water tab has a few questions about your water. Does it have a taste, an odor, a color? Does it leave a stain? Is there anything floating in it? And have you had any leaks in the past year? No. If you have one of the water testing kits from a partner organization, you can click save and come back later and enter the chemistry information. But for most people, just click done and submit the data. And that's it. Congratulations, you're a citizen scientist, and you've helped to improve the safety of our drinking water.
All right, and so that is pretty much how easy it is. Simple as 1, 2, 3 in order to test your water quality at home, test your pipes, and participate and become a citizen scientist.
If there's time, it might be good to show that picture of the underground pipes that's on the Crowd the Tap page. I don't know if I can, to show just the difference between the home plumbing and the service line. I guess we didn't really cover sort of what the pipes look like underground.
All right, give me 1 second to
I don't know what's on the agenda. I don't mean to make us go over.
No, we're doing good. We have about 6 minutes left. And while Deja pulls that up, we had another question come in. Kathy wants to know, is the information that I share through the Crowd the Tap website private?
It is confidential is what the term is. And so, yeah, it's kept, meaning that the researchers who are involved in the project can see the data. Everything is anonymized when it's put into a public data archive. So all personally identifiable information, addresses, like street address and names, are removed. Zip codes will remain, and the other details, when it's put into a public data repository, for archiving data for general, for other types of uses. But in for all the other personally identifiable information is kept confidential.
And we had one more question from Kathy. She wants to know, if I test the water in my dorm, should I list that address and not my home address?
Yeah, you would list the address for where the water was. Yes, so you would. And yeah, and thanks, Deja. Yeah, this is just a little graphic to show that there's both publicly owned portions of this pipe infrastructure and privately owned. And so the publicly owned portions here include under the streets, there's a water main, which comes from the water processing plant. And then it connects to a service line via what's called a gooseneck. And a lot of times those goosenecks, it's a malleable material. A lot of times those are lead. But anyway, so the water main through a gooseneck connects to what's called a service line, and every building with water has a service line. And that service line is part of the publicly owned part of the infrastructure up until the moment it crosses on or under onto private property. And so then it's still called the service line, but it's the privately owned portion. And whoever owns that property is actually responsible for the maintenance and whatnot of that service line material. And then at some place, that service line will enter the building. Like in Brian's home, you saw it entered in the cellar. And then it connects, usually where there's some kind of shutoff valve, it connects to all of the indoor plumbing, which then goes and spreads throughout the house. And like you saw with Brian, there could be multiple types of indoor plumbing. So there'll be one type of service line and potentially multiple types of indoor plumbing. Anyway, so that's just sort of a below ground look. And because it is below ground is why it's so challenging to really know what we've got going on there.
This is some good stuff, and it looks like we're almost near the end. Somebody was having issues accessing the page, but then they got the full website address. Great stuff. Do either of you have any parting words of wisdom for our attendees other than join us again next week for Make It Count Monday?
I can go. I have a few words of wisdom, I guess, or words of encouragement, I would say. If you live in a home, you should definitely you should definitely participate in the project, test your water, test your pipes to see what you have. Number one, because it's important for you to be informed and to know, if there was something in your home that could potentially be harming you or your family. And so it makes you a more informed individual, a member of the community. And it'll also help us build the model, which is great because then we'll be able to identify maybe those places that are at risk. And it's the first step into knowing whether or not how to advocate for yourself and your health. And so just participate in the project. I know I'm here in Chicago at my family home, so I am going to be gathering participants in my community to help participate in Crowd the Tap because I want my family to be informed about what their drinking water potentially could be contaminated or if it's clean and safe.
Yeah, I think I'll second a lot of that too, in that citizen science can be really, really fulfilling and meaningful thing to do because it allows you to explore your world, whether it's these things that might be problematic, that you might have to deal with, that you might have to get filters for or not, and also things that you might enjoy, like I said, like birds or whatever. But what's really makes it also so fulfilling is that it's towards some larger purpose, part of larger efforts, and that the more you can engage and then also connect with people on that topic through our Make It Count Mondays, through other kinds of gatherings, through the forum, through all the other kinds of activities on SciStarter, through our Citizen Science Club, just all those ways. It's like, it's a great way to build out your social network and social support to when you want to make an impact on the world and start to make change.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. And with that, if anyone has any more questions, you can email crowdthetap@ncsu.edu. Or if it's specific to SciStarter, you can email us at info@scistarter.org. Thank you again to the NC State Citizen Science Campus and to SciStarter for making this series possible. And a big warm welcome to all of the new members of the Wolfpack, to everybody who attended here tonight. I know we had people from all around the world, which is always exciting, and lots of representation across North Carolina, which also is very exciting. And I hope to see you all next week, 6 o'clock Eastern, for Make It Count Monday. You can find more info at scistarter.org/NCSU-home. I'll put that link back in the chat. I'll also put it in the YouTube comments. And have a great night.